Welcome to Photoshop Creative Cloud 2020 compositing video. Okay, first thing you need to do to composite two images together is to choose the right images. So this is a snake eye, and I picked one that was straight on because the image that I'm actually going to put it on is on a woman's face where I can see her eyes from the front. So first off, you need to bring the two images into Photoshop. Okay, I have them on two different tabs. Next, on the image that you want to copy and then paste onto the other one, what you want to do is you want to draw you don't even have to do this very carefully, but you want to draw around the image that you want to copy. Then I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to Edit, and I'm going to File, Copy, or use the keyboard shortcut, which is Command-C on the Mac. Once you have your image copied, then what you're going to do is you're going to paste it. So technically the workflow goes like this: copy, paste, erase. Also, layers. We get the layers palette over in the bottom right hand corner. So once we paste this onto our background image, you notice that we got two layers. Photoshop actually goes and it makes an automatic new layer for anything that you paste onto your current project. So make sure that you are working on the right layer when you do this. So choose layer 1 and go to free transform. That is located under the edit menu, and then I'm going to shrink this down. What we need to do is we need to make the right size to go in to her eyeball. So I'm going to resize it, then I'm going to move it using the move tool. And, you know, it's really hard to kind of look at stuff, so I'm going to zoom in. And I'm going to place this over the top of her eye. I'm going to get it kind of in the spot where I think it needs to be. And then I'm going to go back to the layers palette, and I'm going to turn down the opacity on that layer that I have this on to check to see if I have the right size. And this is way too big. So now I'm going to go back to Edit, Free Transform, and I'm going to shrink it even more. And then I'm going to move it using my move tool. Once I have it the right size, I'll move it with my move tool, and then I'll come back and I'll check it and I'll make sure that it looks okay with the opacity turned all the way up. Then I'm going to turn it slightly down. Well, maybe not. Next, what I want to do is I'm going to go to the eraser tool, just the basic eraser tool. Okay, not the background eraser, not the magic eraser. Make sure that your brush gets kind of small. I'm using the brackets to make that smaller. Then I'm just going to come back and very easily erase around the outside of this snake eye. Now, I know something about eyes, and I know that your iris sits behind your eyelid, so I have to give that or know something about that so that I know this is what has to happen. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that it gets a little closer, make my brush a little smaller, and then just do some final refining. And notice that your eyelid goes over the top of your iris. And then I'm going to just move this over just slightly because when I zoomed in, it actually didn't look like it was completely over her eyeball. Okay, then I'm going to go back to the eraser tool, do a little bit more refining right down here at the edge. So I can still see a little bit of that green. Make sure that it's not going over the bottom eyelid. And then if I zoom out, that looks pretty realistic. Okay, here's the other thing that you can do. You can do anything on any of the layers that you would normally do on a picture. So I'm actually going to dull down the brightness on this because it's a little too bright for being in somebody's eye. Okay, it's got a little bit of a shadow. Then I'm just going to pump up the contrast just slightly just so that it gives it a little bit more contrast. And then I'll hit OK. Now that looks pretty realistic, so I guess now I'm going to want to do that with the other eye. And this is very simply easy to do by copying and pasting. So since I know that I'm on layer 1, which has this on it, I'm going to select around the piece that I want to copy, go up to Edit, Copy, and then Edit, Paste. And then I get another one on top of it, and I get another layer. Now I'm just going to move this, set it up, align it, And then I should have two snake eyes on this woman's face. They look pretty realistic. Finally, looks pretty good, but let's say you want to put something into her eye on another layer. This just gives us an indication of looking at stuff. If you don't want to see something that you have in your project but is showing, the little eye next to the layer will show you when it's showing. So let's say you wanted to paint, and this is not the most interesting thing. Let's say you wanted to paint her eyebrows red in the back. I'm just going to use the brush and I'm going to paint on just some paint in red. And then what's going to happen is I'm going to bring back my layer of my eye, and then I'm going to rearrange layers. So here is a good example of how you rearrange layers. What you do is you just pick up the layer and you slide it in between. So now I've got kind of this snake eye on top of a red eye. So you can do lots of things with layers. You can move them around, you can reorganize them, you can put things on top of each other, you can hide things so that you can work on things underneath by using the eyeball in the corner of the layers palette. There's tons of things that you can do with the layers palette inside of Photoshop. Now, one last thing is, how do you delete a layer in Photoshop? Well, I'm going to come back in here and I'm actually going to draw this a little bit nicer than I had before, because I thought it was a little bit messy. So I'm going to draw this in, and if I really don't like it, I could make it transparent if that's what I wanted, or I can just get rid of it altogether. So let's try and see what it looks like with it kind of in the opacity about halfway. She looks okay. Her eyes look a little bloodshot, but I don't like it, so I'm going to take it and drag it to the trash. And that's it. That's compositing inside of Photoshop.